Hey everybody, this is Mark Reid. He's a golf instructor here in Southern California at Strawberry Farms Golf Club in Irvine. And he came in today because he's having some issues with his swing. And we've worked together a lot and we understand, he has a great understanding of the body and he really wants to figure out if there's anything physical that's causing the problems in his golf swing. So I'm going to let him kind of tell you about what's going on in his swing, and then we'll do an assessment on him and we can figure out what it is physical that's causing his problems.
Hi everybody. So to that point, I pretty much know everything that is going on in my golf swing is dictated by my body. So it's not maybe, I already know.
Okay.
So some of the issues I notice in my golf swing, I get a very deep right arm, like a lawnmower movement. So it's where the right arm goes back deep, gets behind me. So what that causes is my left arm very deep across my chest, makes me get a little cuppy here at the top, a little bit too much extension like that, and then I get across the line. I've pretty much had this issue since I'm a kid. Some of the things that Mike and I have looked at is to do with my hand flexibility. I get approximately 60 degrees here and back. I get about 45. So we know we've got issues regarding getting my right wrist back there. To do it actually physically hurts. What other issues, Mike, did I bring up earlier that I was maybe just slipped my mind right now?
Early extension?
Early extension, yeah. So to do it my left, I don't know how I forgot that, but my left hip, pretty much had back injury since I'm about 22 or so. In the last 10 years, my left hip has got a lot worse. And just trying to show students how to get ground reaction force and push down on my left foot like that and get into my left side can sometimes hurt and literally pull a muscle in my left glute. So I know it's very difficult for me to get over there. So in my golf swing, what I typically do on the downswing is I typically have early extension, stand up and come out of it like this, and mainly because I can't engage my left glute and don't want to because it will physically hurt, so I back out of it. So I pretty much know right now my golf swing is being dictated by my physical ailments. So that's why I'm here today, and we're going to spend the next 3-4 months this winter working with Mike, trying to get my body in better shape so I can swing the golf club better.
Okay, so when somebody comes in and tells us that they have an issue in their golf swing and their instructor told them they have an issue, we still take them through our complete assessment because we want to make sure that there's nothing else going on. So if somebody, like Mark said, he's got his right elbow kind of gets stuck behind him, initially I would check one thing, but I want to make sure we check everything so we can see everything that's going on in the body. So the first 3 things that we're going to do are we're going to check the hip stability and mobility of the core. So what we're going to do is get in a 5-iron posture and face the camera, Mark, and you're going to hold your upper body so it doesn't move, and then turn your lower body without moving your shoulders. So you're going to turn your upper body, turn your lower body, and without turning your shoulders. And then go back and forth.
It's harder left this way.
So he said it's harder moving to his left, and he said that earlier. And what I look at as a trained professional, seeing thousands of people do this assessment, is his shoulders are moving a lot. He may not feel like they're moving a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to his shoulders and go ahead and turn again. That's it, and then back the other way. Does that feel easier now to move your hips?
Yeah, stronger as well.
Okay. So what I'm looking there is it's either a mobility thing that he can't turn his hips very well. You see he kind of locks out his legs when he goes side to side, or if it's a stability thing where his core can't hold his upper body stable. So if I can hold him and add the stability, and he can move easier, then we know there's a little bit of a stability issue in his core. So the next thing we're going to do is keep the lower body stable in that same position and turn the shoulders. And what I like to look at here too, and you can see his strings hanging out. I look to see if somebody has a belt on, I can see their belt. I look for the belt to move, or I look for the strings to move. So go ahead and
lower body.
You're going to turn the shoulders.
Like a golf swing, or just turn them?
Just turn them. I don't care how far you go. I'm just looking at your lower body to make sure it stays stable. So we'll go back and forth, right and left.
It's way harder left.
So I'm not yet looking at the mobility here. I'll look at that later, but I'm just really looking at that stability. So the next thing I'm going to do is hold his hips. So I'm going to hold his hips still and then go ahead and do the same thing. And then tell me if that's easier to keep your lower body stable and able to turn. So that, again, now I'm looking at the same thing, mobility versus stability. So he already said it's tighter in his shoulders. And then if we look at the lower body, the glutes are the biggest stabilizer in there. So as I go through the assessment, I already know that we have a little bit of stability issue in the core and a little bit of glute stability issue. So I'll keep that in mind as I'm going through the assessment. So the next one we're going to do is called the pelvic tilt. So you're going to face that way. Same posture. And then without moving your knees or your shoulders, you're going to try and arch your back this way and then tuck under this way. So you're going to arch and then tuck without moving your knees or shoulders.
This feels easier. This feels really hard to do.
So you said the anterior, where you push the butt out, feels easier, and then tucking under feels hard. Where does it feel hard? Does it feel tight, or does it feel just...
tight there right now, but I can do it.
Yeah.
In order to go underneath, I feel like I have to move everything.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel I can't move.
Feels like it's harder to keep his lower body stable to tuck
I
under.
can't move this independently. I feel like I have to move everything.
Right. Kind of like your early extension in your swing.
Yeah.
So, do you feel a vibration when you can tuck under this way?
Check. A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So the vibration, the abdominal wall has to work tucking that under. So the vibration is, again, it's either you don't understand how to use it, or it's just weaker, or both. Or
both.
Yeah, or both. So we see we see the limitations there, and that's the first thing that we do. So now I have that in my mind of I really look at the core and the glutes to make sure the foundation is there, and so now going through the rest of the assessment, I know that we have some issues already popping out. So we'll go on to the next ones. Okay, our fourth assessment is called an overhead deep squat, and it's probably one of the most difficult that we do, just because it involves the entire body, and we're looking at a lot of mobility in the joints and stability in the muscles around the joints. So what I'm going to have Mark do is any type of iron, it doesn't have to be a 5-iron, just a longer iron so your elbows can be at 90 degrees, and then from here he's going to push it straight up over his head. He's going to keep his feet shoulder width apart and heels on the floor, and trying to keep the club above the head. And then I'm going to have him go down as far as he can go this way and then come back up. So we'll see a lot of different things in this one.
This may not be pretty.
Yeah. I'm going to have him face sideways first so you can see this angle. I always stand behind people because their tendency is to fall over. And just a reminder, keep your hands behind your toes and your heels on the ground. Oh, there's a lot going on there. Yep. So go ahead and go down as far as you can. That's as far as you can go. Okay, perfect. Now face the camera. And we'll go one more time, same thing. Go ahead again.
This is really uncomfortable.
He said this is really uncomfortable. Okay, one more time, just to add insult to injury. Okay, good. So, let me tell you what I could see there. So the next, before I explain everything, I'm going to have you put your arms out, put your arms like this, and then try and squat down again as far as you can go.
Like in a golf posture, or just?
Just squat down as far as you can go down in the squat. And then face me. And then do it again. Go down as far as you can. As far as you can. Okay. All right. Does it feel easier?
Easier, yeah.
A little bit easier?
Uncomfortable.
Okay.
In the lower spine area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have, when we do this test, if somebody if they can't go all the way down with their club over their head, if they can't do this and go all the way down, then we take the club away from them and see if they can go all the way down. Because if they can go all the way down and it's easier without the club, then we know that it's more of an upper body issue. It's not a lower body. But with Mark, we have a little bit of both going on, lower body and upper body. So the first thing that I noticed right away is when he went to squat, his squat was more knees dominant this way. I like to see people sit back into their hips where they're more powerful when they squat. And that usually is because he's got in his mind that he has to keep this behind his head. So he's trying to keep it behind, but you can't go down much further than this before you have to go this way. So the fact that he can't keep the club over his head is either a posture issue, a strength in the upper back or the core area, and we've already seen that before, or it's just that he has too much tightness in his shoulder joint. So we know that,
and or both, right?
and they're both, yeah, or a little bit of everything. And then the lower body, the first thing I noticed was when he started down, when he was like this, he shifted his weight to his right side, and he's already mentioned that he has a little bit of a limitation in his left side. So usually if you have an injury, your body will get off that injury or kind of let it go. And a lot of times when people have tightness or weakness in their left side, they finish on their back foot. So that's a big key indicator that you have problems on that one side. And then the other thing is as he started to go down, he could go down well, but once he hit that parallel mark, it was harder for him to go down. So that's usually a hip issue, tightness in the hips. So there's a lot of things. If I had one assessment to do, that would be the one, because you can pretty much see everything in the body. So we'll keep moving on. One thing I forgot to mention, it's very important that we do look for, if we see somebody that can't get down parallel, we want to see how much ankle mobility they have. So Mark's going to keep his left heel on the ground and then push his knee out as far as he can, right over the second toe, so the big and second toe. And if I measure that going straight down, he's about 1 inch over his foot. And he mentioned that it's really tight in that left glute, which really in that movement that it shouldn't be working that much. So we'll go ahead and turn around and we're going to go to the other side. There you go, and keep that right heel down and go forward. And then you can see that he has about 3 more inches of range of motion. So the thing about the ankles is that's the bottom joint mobile. That's the bottom mobile joint of the body, and if that's tight, it will actually come all the way up the body and create different imbalances in the body. So that's an important thing that we don't want to overlook. Okay, so the next one we're going to have him do is a toe touch. So you're going to face me. Keep your legs straight, locked out, and then reach down and try and touch your toes.
Together or apart?
Doesn't really, about 1 inch apart. Just like that. All right. Very good. We got something going for you. Okay, and then we'll move right along to the next one. So the next one is a balance test, and this one is tough because I think one thing is you don't really think about it. You don't do it very often. Unless you're pulled over by the police. But this is a balance test that we do, that you're going to stand on one leg with your arms at your side, and then once you feel comfortable, I'm going to have him close his eyes and try and stay there as long as he can. So we'll go ahead and try that one, Mark. So arms at your side, feel comfortable, and then close your eyes.
Starting to twitch in my left leg.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's go ahead and try the other side. So right side, left leg up, get comfortable, close your eyes. Okay, so what this measures basically is your body has 3 types of proprioceptions: your eyes, your ears, and the bottom of your feet. So we take away the eyes to see how much feel you have in the bottom of your feet. So you'll notice once the eyes close, the foot starts going like this. So he's trying to get more feel. And we can get better balance by strengthening the glute, which is the lower body stabilizer, and just working on working out with your, doing things with your eyes closed, taking that proprioception away. The other thing you can try is turning your head, because that equilibrium in your ear, in your inner ear, is tough too. So that's another way you can close your eyes and turn your head. That's a tough one. Yeah. So those are the toe touch, he looked good on, and then balance. That's another thing, that just a stability thing that we're gonna address. All right. So the next one we're gonna look at are the hips. So we're gonna test his internal and external rotation of the hip, which is really important. He's gonna put his left leg down, his right foot next to his left foot, and then I'm gonna have him turn as far as he can go with the hips. The shoulders can turn as well, but you're just going to make sure you turn your hips as far as you can go. So you're going to stand there, cross your arms over your, I just like this because then I can see the hips easier. So go ahead and turn your hips as far as you can go. So the thing I have on the ground there is a 60-degree angle, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but Mark is about 45. If he was 60, he would be there even with that. So we see some limitation in that left hip, which we already know he has. So we're going to stay on the same foot.
And when I pushed into the approximate 60, I felt my left totally engaging, like in a painful way.
Yeah, so that was a painful move for him. So now we're going to go to the right side. So same thing. Remember, we're going to work on balance too. So that one's actually worse. And we see that a lot in right-handed golfers because I call the ones that have a lot more flexibility on their left side, I call them posers, because when they swing, they stand there and they pose and they stretch that side. And most people aren't stretching the right side, but internal rotation, so that's internal on the right, we tested, and internal on the left, that's what a right-handed golfer goes through. So they go through internal rotation on their right, on their backswing, and if this isn't flexible enough, there's a lot of different things that could happen, like a sway, or you lock the leg out. So there's different faults that will come from tightness in the right hip. And then same thing on the left side. When they drive into the left side, that internal rotation is important to have there. Number one, to get your weight under your left side, and number two is to be able to stabilize on that left leg during your swing. So the next thing we're going to test is your external rotation. So you're going to stand on your left leg one more time, put your right foot next to your instep, and you're going to turn your hips to the right. That's as far as you can go? Okay, good. So now we're looking at the external rotation of the left hip on that one. That one was pretty bad. So now we'll go on the other side.
That's why I'm here.
You're going to turn to your left. I don't usually say that with my students. Turn your hips. Turn your hips, not your shoulders as much, your hips. Okay, good. So now we see a lot of external rotation, and I've always said that the external rotation isn't a huge thing, but it actually is. I used to say that all the time when I first started out, but you always learn more and more things. So in Mark, if he would take a backswing and he would see his left leg collapse, it's because that external rotation is tight, especially if you have somebody that's trying to get more power by driving off their right foot or driving their right side forward this way, and they don't have that external rotation in the hip to do it, then you're going to have a problem. So we know now that Mark has limitation of mobility in all four areas. So right internal and external, and left internal and external. So that's another good one we're going to address. This next one, we're going to test the second most important joint, and that's the thoracic rotation. So what you want to do is I'm going to have them sit down on a bench or a chair. You're going to hold that between your knees. Bring your feet so they're equal to it. So we're going to hold that right against the knees. And then from here, he's going to sit as tall as he can, cross his arms over his shoulders, and he's going to turn his shoulders as far as he can to the right. So we're going to turn as far as you can to the right. I'm just going to measure the angle of this. So right now on that side, he's at about 42 degrees of range of motion turning to the right. And then we'll do the same thing to the left. The reason I put this block here is so he doesn't turn his lower body as well. So we're going to turn to the left. And then that one's going to be right at 45 degrees. So we have 42 going to the right, 45 going to the left. The number we look for is actually 45. So he's right there. As far as I would count that as being limited mobility, because a lot of times in the test, you can go a little bit further if you pull it up, but when you're actually in the golf swing and you try and turn farther, that's when bad things happen. So we have a little bit of limitation in the thoracic rotation of the shoulders. All right, moving right along, we're going to test the external rotation of the shoulder. So what I'm going to have Mark do is stand tall. He's going to put his right arm out at 90-degree angle of his elbow, and then just go back as far as he can go this way without arching the back. So go ahead and face that way. We're going to go right side. That's good. As far as he can go, I'm going to measure that angle again. right there. So he's at about 80 degrees on that side. So go ahead and turn around. And then we'll do the same thing on the left.
This is not going to be pretty.
He says it's not going to be pretty. Let's see. He was right.
There.
Okay.
But that's painful.
That's painful. If I got somebody, that's good. We got 52 degrees of range of motion. Did you have an injury there?
Nope.
No injury. So what we look for 90 degrees of range of motion, mobility there. So the next thing we're going to do is I want to see if he loses any mobility while he's in his posture. So you're going to hold on to this. This is a 6 iron. I like using either a 6 or a 5 iron. You're going to get in posture like you're going to hit it down the line. And then you're going to take your right hand off. Keep the club grounded. Take your right hand off. Bring it up back to that 90 degrees this way. And then go back as far as you can. I'm going to take 2 measurements here. So I'm going to measure his spine angle, which is 30. And then I'm going to measure the angle here, which is 55. So 55 plus 30 is 85. So he's actually gaining a little bit of mobility, which we see sometimes, and that could be just because of the arch of the back, or he tried to turn his shoulder a little bit. But he's right around the same. So we know he's not losing the range of motion in his shoulder once he gets into his posture. So now let's test that left side. So turn around. So go ahead and take the left hand off. Bring it up 90 degrees. Right there. I'm going to measure that angle. That angle is 25. Oh, man. And that angle is 35. So we got to 60 on that one. What was it when you were standing? 60? So you're not losing posture. So a lot of times we'll see people, if they have instability in their shoulders, once they get into posture, if they round over, they actually lose. So what happens in the swing is if you come up and you're like, oh, I can go 90 degrees here, but you can only go to 70 here. So and somebody tells you to get your elbow down, and you go up here and you're like, oh, I can get to 90, so if I stand up. So then that's why a lot of times you'll see a stand up in the backswing. So, all right, let's keep going. Okay, so the next one is a cervical rotation. So we want to see how far he can turn his head. So he's going to keep his body straight ahead, head standing tall. He's going to turn as far as he can to the right, and then with his mouth closed, try and touch his chin to his clavicle there.
Yeah,
so
this is going to be really bad.
Okay. So it's going to be bad.
Yeah, and I've had this issue since I'm a kid, so I'm aware of it. Okay.
And then reach down and touch. Okay. That's not too
feel a lot of stress.
On the right side where it's, so that's the side that's flexing, not so much stretching. Go ahead and turn to your left. Okay, that one's really bad. So the left, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but he's got about 60 degrees going this way and about 20 degrees going to the left. Unfortunately for Mark, the golf swing is basically, you're here, your head goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So it goes over your left shoulder because you're going to look at the ball, and then it goes directly over the right shoulder. So if he can only turn this far, it's going to be hard for him to watch the ball without doing something, because his head, he doesn't have that mobility. So if you have somebody, if you have a tendency to come off the ball or get a reverse spine angle, it could be because your neck is tight. So that's something to look out for as well.
So therefore, I'll have difficulty getting my weight into my right side, correct? Obviously.
Yeah, because you're trying to watch the ball a little bit
Okay.
more.
And I'm very central axis swing my whole life. I've always had difficulty. And when I do actually try and hit balls and do it, I might be able to get it anatomically correct, but I cannot hit the ball. So, but if I say central axis, I can hit the ball.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you really want to look into it, if you're right eye dominant, it's going to be even worse, because then you're trying to look at it with your right eye, but you can't. So that could be a big issue.
I'm right eye dominant. Yeah.
So. Okay, so this next one is a lat test. So we want to see how much range of motion he has in his arms going up over his head. So what you're going to do is you're going to if you can, stand against a wall And then to keep the back, you can bring your arms out just a little bit. You want to keep the back as flat down here as you can. So that pelvic tilt test that we did where you go under, that's what you want to feel there. Thumbs up in the air. And then keeping your arms as straight as you can, you're going to go up and try and touch the wall with your arms. Both arms at the same time. Go up as high as you can go. Now we're losing the back here. And then he's going up to between his nose and ear. That's kind of the thing that I look for. Obviously we want to see him touch the wall, but he's up between the nose and the ear. So if he tries to touch the wall, his back comes way off the wall. So what that shows is there's limitation in the lat muscle, which is that big muscle right here. So in anytime trying to get, so if he can only go to here, and then he goes to here, and somebody tells him, oh, you should get your arms higher, he can't do that because of his limitation. So, but if he did that, it'd be a lot easier. So we're starting to see a lot of those things tie together with what he said he does in his swing at the beginning.
Yeah, we can see that in my swing at the top of the backswing. I don't get my hands very high, they're very low. And I think you've said it's about 60 degrees in the past when we've looked at it, my arm angle. Yeah. That actually looked like it might have even been better than 60.
I can measure it real quick here. So go ahead and do it again.
But it was 60 when you looked at it 2 years ago. Do I keep my head against the wall?
Yep.
Spine's coming away now.
Good. Yeah, I think, so that's 150. We look for 180. I don't know where you're getting the 60 from.
I was off by 60.
Okay.
I was off by 60 degrees based on tour average.
Okay, so you were 120 before.
And what was I now?
150.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
So
better.
It was definitely better, yeah.
Okay.
But I remember, okay, so that makes sense. I was off by 60 degrees. I remember it was a shocking number. Yeah.
Yeah, so we looked for 180 and you were at 120 before, so now at 150.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so on this one, this is what we're gonna look at the glutes. Usually I'm not gonna say any more until afterwards. So let's just start over. On this test, I'm gonna have Mark lay flat. He's gonna bend his knees, and then he's gonna lift his hips up as high as he can. And then from here, he's gonna extend his right leg and hold for 8 seconds. If he doesn't cramp first. Perfect. Good. And down. And now you're going to lift up again and extend your left leg and hold.
This feels way easier.
And I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of shaking going on in here. And then his hip dropped immediately, but he said his right side feels a lot easier. That's good.
Feels easier, but there's way more wobbling movement. Yeah.
Okay. And down. So what this is a glute test. So I want to see, I don't say anything to him before, but I want to see how much his glutes do that motion or do that stability. And would you say you felt it in the glute or in the hamstring of the lower back?
This right side, I don't feel anything, but the left side, I definitely felt it in the glute. Yeah.
Okay. So we know the glute's firing, we just know it's weak on that side.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. 90 to 95% of the people don't understand how to use their glutes or don't use their glutes in this test. So that's an eye-opener for a lot of people that don't understand how to fire their glutes. So that's something that we work on a lot. So Mark's got that going for him. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do with Mark is we're going to test his wrist and his forearm mobility. And I don't do this. I ask people if they have any wrist issues. But we know that Mark has some things just by what he explained at the beginning. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you stand at your side with your arms just like this, and you're going to open up your hand and then hand down as far as you can go. So we're looking at range of motion there. Don't see anything that stands out there. So the next thing we're going to do is you're going to face that way. You're going to put your arms out straight out. You're going to make a fist, and then you're going to drop your hand down as far as you can, and then now bring your hand up as far as you can. Okay, good. So which one did you say you had
Right hand.
problems in? Okay, so I think they're both limited in this motion, and that is a flexion motion. So what we look for there is we look for 60 degrees, and right now you're just at about 55, so it's not too bad on that side. And then on this side, this one's at 50 degrees. So let me remeasure this one here. Okay, 45 degrees. It's important that you measure the right way. So we look for 60 degrees in that. So
But it's also painful for me to actually just get 45.
it's hard.
It's
You're
throbbing
cranking on
there,
it?
right? Yeah, I'm throbbing there.
Where do you feel the pain?
In the back of the wrist, yeah. It's
Okay.
like it's physically difficult for me to get
Yeah.
that position at the top of the backswing, and I'm normally a little...
Yep. And we know that's important. So
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's an important one to look at. The next thing we're going to look at is face the same way this way, and then we're going to go down this way, and then we're going to come up as high as you can that way. So this is ulnar and radial deviation. That's good, and then back up. That's good. So if you have somebody that isn't like, you know, like we talked about earlier, that have different lofts on their clubs, it could be that they have this issue. But I think the main thing right here is that bowing and cupping motion on you. So that's something we'll definitely address. All right, so that's the assessment that we take our clients through as far as mobility and stability goes, to figure out what range of motion they have in the joints and then how much stability they have, all having the golf swing in mind. So the way that we address the training is, and the way we look at this is, if you look at the body, there's a pattern of a mobile and a stable joint all the way through the body. So the ankle is mobile, it can move everywhere. The knee is stable, the hip is mobile, the lumbar spine is only designed to flex and extend. And then you have the thoracic is rotary. Then you have the shoulder blade that's stable, it stabilizes the shoulder, that's mobile. And then the elbow is stable, can only move this way. And then you have the wrist that's mobile. So when we add rotation into anything, especially a violent move like the golf swing that most people swing violently. So for example, if my hip that is supposed to rotate 45 degrees or 60 degrees or whatever you're trying to get to, and it can't do it, what happens is something is going to give. Because if you're trying to turn and your hip can't, but you're still trying to go, there's a lot of different things that your body's going to do. So if you only have 30 degrees of turn in your right hip, and your knee is going to try and do this. So your knee is going to try and buckle out, or your foot's going to slide, or you're going to stand up, or you're going to sway. So there's different reasons of why you do things because of limitation in your joints. So 90% of the people that come in with back pain or discomfort in their back, it's not because their back's hurt, it's because their hips are tight, because their lower back is trying to rotate. So thinking about that, looking at Mark's body, there's a few things where he said, yeah, that's painful, or the things that he said about what you're doing in your swing, like your right shoulder gets back here, your hip, you get early extension. So taking all that into consideration, I'm looking at three different things. Number one, the mobility of the joint. Number two, the stability of the joint. And number three, the coordination or understanding how to move. It could be that this motion here is just a bad habit because you're trying to get your wrists better.
Okay, yeah.
It could be. I don't see anything that would prevent you from taking the club away back here. I mean, that could be just a habit thing, and it could be I always refer back to, it could be a golf instructor thing, a medical thing, or a fitness thing. So it could be that could be a golf instructor thing. I don't know if you know any of them, but that would be good. Just kidding. And then the early extension. So the studies at Titleist Performance Institute are 99% of the people that can't do that overhead deep squat will early extend in their swing. So there's a lot going on. It could be a path issue. It could be different things that are going to cause that. But obviously we saw a lot of limitations. So we saw limitations in the big joints, the thoracic spine, the hips, the neck, and then we saw some stability issues in the core and the glutes. So the attack that I'm going to take is, number one, setting the foundation, making sure he understands how to fire his glutes, how to use his core, make sure that he understands that. And then once we do that, then we're going to work on the mobility issues. And the way I work on mobility is if I can stabilize the muscle that's stabilizing that joint. For instance, the glute muscle is going to stabilize the hip. I need to make sure he can use his glutes first, and then get mobility. Because you can stretch until you can't stretch anymore, but if you don't strengthen the opposing muscle, then it's not going to stick. And the best example of that is if I got shoulder posture like this, I can stretch my chest muscles to get my shoulders back, but until I move or make my back muscles stronger to hold that, it's not going to help. So that's the approach that we take, is especially with tight hips, is we got really good exercises and stretches, but we got to make sure that the hips are always working through a good range of motion. And then as far as the one thing that really stood out is his whole left side is kind of jacked up, and that could be because of the ankle. So getting better mobility in the ankle, left ankle, will help all the way up, because we have tightness in the left hip, in the left glute. We know the left glute's working, but there's tightness over here, so that's really going to prevent him from getting to his left side. So stay tuned on this progress. I'll actually try and update you with the program that we're doing and everything else. So we'll see how it goes. Looking forward to it, Mark.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.